Hey guys, thank you for joining episode 26 of The Green Life. Today I have a very different guest. She's not a doctor, but she helped a lot of people get healthier, probably more than a lot of doctors can say. So that says a lot. I have here the co-founder of Eat, Move, Rest, Erin Stanczyk, who with her husband, Dusty, has really shared their journey into becoming plant-based, but not just plant-based, healthy, and connecting all the dots between a life that needs good food, good movement, and also rest. So I am really excited to talk to Erin because she's been very open about her personal journey. And one of the things she was very, very candid about was her pregnancies, and obviously now the two babies that are eating a fully plant-based diet, and they're so healthy and so happy. So we're going to go through the myth that say that if you're pregnant and have children, they have to eat meat. And we're going to really talk about how to stay healthy on a wonderful, bountiful, rich diet of plants. So without further ado, let's get going with Erin. Welcome. Hi, Erin. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on The Green Life today.
Hello, everybody. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Very warm. I'm sweating as I'm talking to you.
Yes, same here.
So I'm really happy that you accepted to do the podcast. First of all, I've been following you for just about a year now, and it was at a time where I needed community to get back into health, because I kind of got yanked out of my routine when we left London, and we had this huge project in Portugal. We have a farm and we started from scratch, not knowing exactly what we're doing, but I felt like I didn't have the community of like health, conscious people, and nobody's really vegan up here. In the cities they're better, but up in the mountains of Portugal, nobody really does the vegan thing. And so I felt really isolated. I started eating still a vegan diet, but very heavily processed, which I know better, and it made me sick. And there was a lot of emotional stuff, but I needed community. And so I found your channel, and I just felt that it made inspiration and connection. And I thought, yes. And I started just getting back into my routine. And I actually love one of the things you created. You guys, the meal planner really made a huge difference. So thank you for that. It was awesome.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. And also I love how you candidly share everything openly, and it's a process, it's a journey. And that's really good because there's no faking it, and so thank you for that. Now, for people that don't know you and are not probably like super obsessed about Eat, Move, Rest like I am, should we give them a little introduction about your journey and how you came to create this wonderful platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so glad to be here. And yeah, I totally agree with you on the community component, because it takes a village and it makes a huge difference. Even if you can't find people right next door to you, to find that online community makes such a difference. So I guess I can take it back to college, kind of when I derailed, so to speak. So I was basically raised well. My mom took care of us. She gave us smoothies and healthy meals and things like that. But I didn't really show an interest in helping her in the kitchen. So when I went to college, I was no longer a high school athlete. I didn't know how to even boil a pot of water. I was living in my dorm room off of beef jerky and ramen noodles and just doing all the normal college kid things. I was enjoying my freedom a little bit too much, staying out late, partying, drinking, sleeping in. I was the type that never saw the sun. I slept in with my blinds closed, never opened the blinds. And I was eating so much fast food. I never had really, at that time thought of food as anything other than like, if it tastes good, I eat it, Food was purely for enjoyment. I didn't know anything about food as fuel or food as medicine. And it all kind of snowballed and caught up with me. And I just, I remember my roommate and I at the time, we both were in this same position of, we just didn't feel good anymore. And we decided, let's go, maybe to the campus rec and try and work out and exercise. And I stepped on the scale and I looked in the mirror and I just didn't know I didn't recognize the person that I saw anymore. And so I guess, most people in my position, the first place they look is the gym. They're not looking at what's on their plate. So that's where I started. But it just started this vicious cycle of working super hard to undo the weekend damage during the week. I would go Monday through Friday and work out really hard. And then on the weekends, I would go really hard with the binge eating and binge drinking. And it was such a roller coaster. And it started to kind of play with my emotions. And, I had a lot of hormonal issues, a lot of emotional issues, acne. I already mentioned the weight gain. And panicking and anxiety and just kind of feelings of depression a little bit. And at the same time, I had also begun to experience a lot of odd symptoms that started out kind of mild. And a lot of people would say, oh, it's just anxiety. But it's kind of like, I was in this position where it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because the anxiety and panic attacks were happening, but then also there was like numbness and tingling. I had a lot of difficulty breathing. It was almost debilitating. And a lot of these issues made it difficult to even be social or socialize, which is scary, being that I'm a very shy person already. So that was an issue. I had a lot of brain fog, indigestion, slow digestion. That alone will wreak havoc on your mood if you're not regular. And around this time, I actually met Dusty, who is my now husband. We just started running around, basically doing the same things together, partying together on the weekends, but trying to be healthy during the week. And we got to a point where we wanted to start. He likes to cook and grill. So at least we were like upgrading from fast food and restaurant food to like preparing our own food. So that was a step in the right direction, but we were nowhere near plant-based at this point. Until my parents actually mentioned, hey, do you guys want to come and listen to this speaker at a local hospital? So my uncle's a cardiologist. He invited us and we went with my parents. And that person ended up being Dr. Esselstyn. So he talked all about, the power of plants in regards to preventing and reversing heart disease. And being that I came from a biology background, I got my degree in biology at school. It really spoke to me because I couldn't, the numbers don't lie. So it really made a lot of sense to me and resonated with me. And being that, my dad has a history of heart disease on his side of the family, and so does my mom, that really meant a lot to me to listen to him speak. So Dusty and I went plant-based for 40 days for Lent. And, actually not plant-based. We went vegetarian. So we just cut out meat. And we were already terrified that, we might not survive. At the end of 40 days, we were shocked that we were still standing, we were still alive. And even more importantly, we felt even better than we knew we could. But we went back to our old ways. Dusty always laughs because the first thing he did was went through the drive-through to celebrate. So he went and got himself a juicy burger. But I think for me, I was kind of clinging on to it because I knew I had made a step in a positive direction and I didn't want to backtrack. So we decided we would continue, like, let's just do the vegetarian thing, at least at home. Like maybe once in a while we'll go out and treat ourselves. But then we began to like enjoy it so much that we just kept progressing more and more in that direction. And simultaneously, we had started taking these health coaching certification courses. And it seemed like a lot of the doctors, physicians, experts, people we were learning from were predominantly preaching a plant-centric diet, even if they weren't fully plant-based. So we just kept getting more and more reinforcement that this was the right direction to head with our food and our eating. And, I found resources online during this time, like Forks Over Knives being a big one that helped me to stick it out just because their recipes are just so clean, yet so flavorful and so good and so diverse, like recipes from around the world. So resources like that began to pop up online. We're getting certified. We're moving towards plant-based. We got to this point where we were like, excited about going into my dad's office. He's also a physician. We'd get our blood work done because it was kind of like, being that I was an A+ student, that was like my form of like, give myself a pat on the back because I'm doing a great job. But I got my blood work back and my cholesterol was high. And at this point, I was just still vegetarian, trying to get there. But I was clinging on to eggs because I was so fearful that protein was, going to escape me if I didn't have at least my eggs. So I was eating a lot of eggs every day for probably breakfast and lunch, and my cholesterol was high. My dad's nurses told me, you might want to just think about getting on a statin drug to keep that in check. And being in my 20s, I was like, okay, well, for how long? And they're just like, well, probably forever. And I'm just like, what? No, I'm in college. There's no way that's going to happen. That just didn't sit right with me. So I was like, okay, maybe I can do this plant-based thing. I was like so nervous that I wasn't going to get what I needed, but I cut the eggs, and within, I would say, about a month or so, my cholesterol went down to what Dr. Greger would call the heart attack proof range. And I was, of course, thrilled because I had heard stories, but now I believed it for myself. And, Dusty had a lot of things he overcame, like his chronic heartburn and indigestion, which, again, going back to like my main thing was like, I had such an issue with like digestion and mood, and so did he, but in a different way. He really said that like the heartburn would like put him in this such a low state emotionally and mentally. And I could always tell. I'm like, what's eating you today? And so it was just so exciting and rewarding to know that like all of this hard work we'd been putting in, just slowly transitioning, got us to like such a great place. Like, and the thing is, sometimes you don't know that you can feel better than what you currently do. And I think that was huge for us because we were 20 something. And at that point, you kind of are still invincible, or at least you think you are. But I'm kind of thankful that these things started to hit me hard so that I had a reason to seek change and to seek truth and to find this plant-based lifestyle. So yeah. And I guess that's, I'll just say really quick, that's how Eat, Move, Rest started, is going back to like finding these resources online that also included Instagrammers and YouTubers. And it started with, I posted like my green smoothie recipe on Instagram, and a couple of friends from high school asked. And then I thought, I'm kind of in a place right now where I am floundering. I want to be a health coach. I want to do something with my biology degree, but I don't want to go into medicine because it's not going to be the type of thing I want to offer to people. So I started a blog just to kind of like establish a place for myself where I could get to know myself, honestly. People started reading the blog, enjoying the recipes. And then it came to a point where Dusty and I wanted to go past the photos to video and really connect with people, because that's where we were watching, we were watching recipes and YouTubers that we felt like we were friends with, quite frankly. So we wanted to be that for other people because we felt like we had such a message to share. So Eat, Move, Rest was birthed in this process of me trying to be Mrs. ErinStanczyk.com, but Eat, Move, Rest kind of took over because, it's what we were doing. And we tell people all the time, it's the 3 things we all do every day that we could all be doing better. So yeah, Eat, Move, Rest it is.
Yeah, it's beautiful though. It's perfect. And I love how actually like it's a perfect tagline. We do it every day and we can do it better because we all mostly do it wrong. I can so relate to your story, except that I probably got there a little bit. I mean, I didn't get there later. It's just that I was having a lot of eating disorders in my 20s still. So I got to where I really looked at my blood test and thought, oh my gosh, at 30. And then I thought, okay, this is not good. I'm not getting any younger. I better fix it now. And for me, it was high cholesterol and sugars. And I kind of went perfect after going plant-based. And then 5 years ago, when I started having this project and the stress, I mean, I gave myself type 2 diabetes. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. So I'm in the process of reversing it now naturally. And it's scary because you don't think that you can damage your body so quickly. But at the same time, you can fix it. And just by doing the right things. And of course, I mean, it wasn't just the food, it was the stress and, again, the not resting and not being at peace and not connecting. And that was very important. I think that's probably the holistic message that I saw in your channel that I really loved. So I can totally relate. And now, of course, today's episode is all about actually a specific subject, which is mostly your plant-based pregnancies and your beautiful babies that are fully plant-based. And I can always see when a child is on a plant-based diet, because there is something about the spark in their eyes. I don't know what it is. But there is that clarity and that like very vivacious and clean. And of course, you can totally do it wrong. Everybody can do it wrong on any diet, but you don't. You do it properly. And I love that. And one thing, though, that parents obviously are afraid about is, well, if I'm pregnant, is being vegan okay for me? And is okay for my babies? Because there is stigma around it and also misinformation. So you're a great testament that it can be done right. So, well, the first thing is, obviously you were already plant-based when you became pregnant the first time with Max. And I wonder, if you had not been already plant-based, do you think you would have had more challenges going plant-based being pregnant?
Oh yeah. I mean, because I was already fearful that I wasn't going to be healthy myself when I went plant-based. So if I would have waited and gone plant-based when I was pregnant, I probably would have really struggled with, having the reassurance I needed to know that I was doing it the right and safe way. So I can definitely feel for people who feel that way. But it's definitely doable. It's definitely possible. One of the biggest hurdles, I think, for me was just the morning sickness. So I never really, people always think that if you're healthy, you're going to get away with not having to deal with morning sickness. But I definitely had it. I never got to the stage where I was like, throwing up or anything, but I was in like a constant state of nausea, just feeling queasy, and had a lot of food aversions. So I feel for people when they, have those struggles, because it makes it even more difficult to eat healthfully. But I did find workarounds and I stayed with it. And I think the biggest thing for me has always been, since day one, is to have super healthy breakfasts. And the easiest way to get in nutrition was with healthy green smoothies. It's always been that way. When I was pregnant, it was that way. It's still that way. Green juices and things like that. But smoothies will always be king for me. So I had a lot of aversions to my favorite, like rainbow salads and things like that, where I was getting lots of fresh veggies. But I didn't want any of them. I still was able to get them into a green smoothie because I was also putting in, I do like frozen bananas and mango and pineapple and sometimes some wild blueberries, things like that make it very, very palatable. So you're making sure you're still getting those healthy greens that you need, which was a lifesaver for me. So that's a big tip for people if they are struggling with nausea or aversions or can't keep something down, and then another thing that helped me a lot was, I was really just craving things that were like white bread, white pasta. So I just opted for upgrades, So with my pasta, I would do like the chickpea pasta that's really, really high in protein, really, really high in iron. So it's just like whatever I'm craving, how can I do the best possible version of that food? So.
And what were the resources you used to obviously educate yourself about the extra nutrients you needed while you were growing a human being?
Yeah, I definitely have, since day one, I've always been like arming myself with knowledge along with these weapons of mass nutrition, as I call fruits and veggies. So like my primary sources were plant-based juniors, which is specific to like kids and babies and toddlers, and also Forks Over Knives. And then PCRM.org, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. All of these are fantastic resources that, you can even, do some digging and you'll come to find that some of these major organizations like the World Health Organization have actually put out statements saying that the vegan diet is safe and healthful for all stages of life, which includes pregnancy and infancy. So I think just seeing that in multiple places and knowing that, if you can just seek out the foods that have the same nutrition in them that animal products are, that we think we have to be consuming, if you can seek out those nutrients in plants, you can be, you can thrive, not just survive. I didn't want to be in a survival state. I wanted to be in a state of thriving. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people are familiar with things like macronutrients. So everybody understands the concept of carbohydrates, protein, and
Mhm.
fats at whatever extent and level, but they understand the concept of them. So we can associate kind of those food groups. But when it comes to pregnancy, what are the micronutrients you think a woman that perhaps has no idea about nutrition really should be looking for?
Mhm. Yeah, I focused really heavily on iron being a big one, just because it can be really easy to become depleted in that, whether you're pregnant or not, even whether you're vegan or not. And then you hear a lot about choline. People are concerned about choline, but there's actually an abundance in different plant foods. All you have to do is a quick Google search to find that out. And biotin being another huge one. Again, very abundant in plants, and calcium as well in your greens. And yeah, so I would say those are some important ones. And something I did also do that in the past, I went through a phase where I thought I had to be so clean and pristine with all the raw foods and I couldn't eat cooked food. So like after I went from like weight gain, I went to this like almost I looked like I was an unhealthy weight because I was trying to eat so clean and I wouldn't allow myself any supplements even, which I don't agree with. I think supplements can be important, and that goes for vegans, vegetarians, and meat eaters alike. So I would also recommend being on like a prenatal vitamin, staying on that even as long as you're breastfeeding, just to make sure. It's never a bad idea to have that safeguard. Just to make sure you're getting what you're needing for you and for your little one. So I would also recommend, if you do, try to find one that comes from whole foods as opposed to synthetic vitamins. So,
Yeah, very good call. And actually, you mentioned something that is a great segue into the next question. You did obviously you shared your journey openly on YouTube and with a very personal video that I know made you quite emotional at the time. And it was from going, from this journey of going overweight, from not looking after yourself to then being. I mean, a lot of people would call this orthorexia, I guess, very very specific about what you put in your body. And you became pregnant as you were in that stage or coming out of this stage, I believe.
mhm.
What was the scariest thing for you to face when, because you obviously were aware of the fact that you were underweight, but at the same
Mhm.
time you did want vitality and you felt kind
Yep.
of good because you were clean eating.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the scariest thing for you then?
I think it was just very scary to experiment with my body in the sense of like eating more calories and maybe eating more, because I was following a lot of raw vegans who kind of scare you away from thinking like beans are bad for you and grains are bad for you, and here's why. And it was very scary territory again for me to experiment. First, I had to experiment with going vegan. Now I had to experiment with cooked foods, and that seemed scary because I thought I was just on this pristine, perfect diet. But really, I had to learn intuitive eating, and I really had to listen to my body, especially because like when it comes time to conceive and then carry a baby, like you really, really want to make sure you're listening to your intuition and listening to what your baby needs. And I just had, I had to get in this mindset of, like I said, just experiment. Like you can always go back or you can always course correct as you go. So don't be afraid to experiment. And I think that's a big takeaway for anybody is don't be afraid. Like just give yourself a window of time. Say, I'm going to try this for 30 days. If I don't feel great or if something changes that I don't like, I can course correct. So you have to really commit in order to succeed. So give yourself a window of time and just trust the process. So that's what I did. And I was just like, really craved things like oats, which I've become a huge fan of. I bake all kinds of baked goods and we make waffles and pancakes, and they're just healthy and clean. And they're so good and they make me feel so good. So yeah, I just started experimenting. And you don't have to eat junk food if you need to gain weight. In order to gain healthy weight, all you have to really do is, add a couple hundred extra calories each day of what you're already eating. So eat an extra sweet potato instead of just having one, things like that.
Yeah, I feel like the body knows exactly what it needs to be when you give it enough of the resources it needs. So A lot of us think, because we always think in parameters of calories, restriction, or abundance, then we forget that our body knows exactly how to allocate any energy input that we have into our body, and how our cells anyway need the sugars and need the carbohydrates to produce ATP. At cellular level, I work with, I study with Dr. Healy, and is a big spokesperson for mitochondria, energetic health, and it's amazing how everything really goes down to the mitochondria. So we really forget to think our body actually knows exactly what to do. It's just that we need to give it the raw material instead of the material we've been giving for a long time with our processed diets, which is things our body doesn't even recognize.
Yeah.
How is this? And that's to work
Exactly.
really hard at breaking it down. And then I really always thought, if the body doesn't know what to do with it, it's going to put it in the safest place, which is fat cells, because it can't escape from there, like stay there. And that's why there's a lot of toxicity with being overweight as well, long term, from a bad diet. So it makes complete sense. And I also am in the phase of baking oats, like it's out of fashion. But for me, it's like, I don't make cakes. I just don't do cakes, like, that kind of stuff. But you feel like you're having a sweet when you make oat bake, and it makes you happy. You're right.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. And I guess now with two babies that love that too, like, it's a must, because you obviously want to make sure that they have something that it's enjoyable and have a good relationship with food as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that completely. So food shouldn't be like a punishment. If you're thinking of going vegan, to do it as a diet, especially for a short-term thing, it's probably not the way to go. If you want to go plant-based, you can eat in abundance, and your food can taste amazing, and it can be just as enjoyable. My parents just came and visited us here at our new home in Florida. And the past 5 days were amazing. None of them are 100% plant-based, but they enjoyed all of the food we made them. So we didn't have to, be in separate corners eating separate food. Even when we went out, it's great. You learn workarounds and you learn recipes that anyone can enjoy. And that, I think, is super important, because food should be, again, going back to community. It's one of the ways that we connect and bond.
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to actually ask you about obviously now you are on a full plant-based diet and no oil, following the advice of the physicians that we both follow and know. And I was wondering if throughout pregnancy, to add on the extra calories, you thought about adding some oils or fats, or, well, I know you have fats, some oils, or you opted for whole fats. What was your approach there?
I still was oil free, still am. I just prefer it that way. I find that it helps my digestion. Again, just oil always just tends to slow things down for me. I found that just incorporating a little bit more avocado and things like tahini, and more nuts and seeds like chia and flax being my two go-tos, whether it's for smoothies or for baking. So yeah, I just, and nut butters too. I really love almond butter. That was something I craved, was just like banana with almond butter. So yeah, I didn't feel the need to incorporate oils.
Yeah, good. I actually went oil free because of of your recipes, because I grew up in an Italian family. So God forbid you give up olive oil, everybody's going to start coming with holy water at you, So, and I love it. And you're right. Digestion has been going better and better for me since I going plant-based, but it did get better even more when I went oil-free. And also, oh my goodness, the kitchen is so clean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's the best.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, then, I agree. A lot of people do take issue with when you say, I'm going oil free. They're like, but olive oil is so good for you. There's so many protective benefits, but there's also protective benefits to red wine, and I don't drink alcohol anymore. And, to each his own. It's not like these things are going to kill you necessarily, but I just feel like if you can do it without, then why not? It's so good for you, because if you look at it, if you want to know why we don't do oil, it's because you take a spoonful of white sugar. That is a 100% refined carbohydrate. So if you're not into that, and if you're not going to eat that spoonful, you look at a spoonful of olive oil, that's a 100% refined fat. So we should be looking more for like the less refined or the unrefined versions of foods that contain other phytonutrients. There's, it's like an equation, and you don't want to, like, I don't know, how do you say, if you consume it, it's going to offer your body so much more. There's fiber that's intact, like I said, other micronutrients and phytonutrients, and it's going to be a complete food for your body to better recognize and break down properly.
Oh, absolutely. When I spoke to Dr. Campbell, one of the things that came up was, the oversimplification of our nutrition. And we forget that, yes, maybe olives, let's talk about olives because olive oil is in the subject. But so olive oil is just the extracted fat, and you're taking away everything that is in the olive that would balance out that fat. So, you're talking fiber and all the vitamins. So you don't need to extract something that then lets go of all the rest and think that's going to be healthier for you than eating the actual olive. So it's just that we have oversimplified, and that's because going back to the fact that everybody can tell you, yeah, that's a carb and that's a fat and that's a protein, but they don't understand the synergy between all these macronutrients when it comes down to working with the micronutrients and the antioxidants and so much more, that we have this black and white view. And I mean, not many things in life are black and white, and food certainly isn't. So I think that's why it goes down to that. And you said perfectly, you wouldn't eat a spoon of sugar just like that because it's super like refined. Why would you have the oil, which you can't get from nature? You have to process and process and process. So yeah, it's an interesting fact, and I, as I said, I never thought about it because I grew up, with abundant olive oil. So that's very interesting. So I guess the children also, when it comes to them, and let's talk about children because now moms, okay, I can do this vegan pregnancy, and what about my children? Don't they need to have meat because that's a big thing, or cheese because dairy, and what about them? What is the best approach for them, especially when it comes to fats now? Because a lot of people, obviously, fairly enough, they think they need more calories, and they do. But what is the best place to get those extra calories?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to like a great starting point is a really good tasting smoothie. That's a great place to get in some concentrated, not just concentrated calories, but concentrated nutrition. You can hide a lot of healthy foods in a smoothie. So that's where I always like to start. And then for, extra healthy fats, we do from Plant-Based Junior's recommendations, they're two nutritionists. We have tried incorporating olive oil for the kids' sake, just for added calories, but we don't find it 100% essential. It's just sometimes easier to sneak it in when they get to the picky eater stage. You can put some oil on their pasta and things like that. But for the most part, we still opt for like an avocado for avocado toast, or sometimes like Liv, our youngest, who's one, we'll just eat cubes of avocado. We'll just dice it up and she just loves it. Great calorie source. And then, things like nut butter can be a little dangerous for a little tiny baby, but you can add them into baked goods, or we can add them right into our pancake or waffle recipe to bump up the calories in that way. So I think a lot of those like baked goods and those kind of foods are a great place to sneak in extra calories in a healthy way too.
So Max seems very happy to eat anything you put in front of him in the videos. Did he ever go through did he ever go through the eating, like, picky stage?
Oh, definitely. So I don't want anybody to ever look at our reels or our videos on Instagram or YouTube and think, oh man, I wish my kid was like that. Their kid eats so healthy. But honestly, there are definite ups and downs. So one day I think I have him figured out, and I will give him, like this amazing bean burger we just made, and he will love it. Then the next day, like, I make it all fancy and I'm all excited. Maybe he'll eat two today because he loved it so much and he wants nothing to do with it. So kids are really tricky like that. They just, sometimes you'll think what they love, and then the next minute they want nothing to do with it. But like, persistence is definitely key, and just continuing to model good behavior with, food, and, walk the walk. Don't just say you have to eat this, but then go and eat something else. I think getting Max involved helps a lot, like from start to finish. So when we go to the grocery store, having him help pick the apples he wants or whatever it might be, and then getting home. And he loves making recipes with us, especially when he can see himself on the Instagram reels that we make. They're super fun and cute. So getting him involved makes him feel kind of a sense of pride when he's done, and he's excited to try whatever it is that we just made. And all of those things have helped a lot to get around some of the picky eating habits. A lot of it then just comes down to patience. Sometimes we forget how tiny their tummies are. We expect them to, and sometimes we give them too big of a serving size, and that can be kind of intimidating and cause them to shut down. So sometimes if you start with less, then that can help a lot too. And another thing I do is there are days where he just wants to eat all the fruit. I used to give him these variety plates, like I do for Liv. I'll give her fruit, veggie, grain, bean, or whatever. But for Max is at the age now where he's wised up. He'll eat a whole bunch of fruit and then he won't touch all the other stuff. So giving fruit as a dessert almost afterwards, if they finish, some of the other more calorie dense, nutrient dense foods, then they can have the fruit. So things like that have helped to kind of overcome some of the picky eating.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And what about for kids that really don't want to eat? And I know you talked about intuitive eating, and also I know that you're doing, for example, baby-led weaning so that they can just start their own journey into solid food. What is your approach when a child really doesn't want anything to do with a plate? Because a lot of parents obviously spend a lot of time forcing them to have it, and even having to kind of barter with the kid, okay, you can have a toy, and what is the best approach for you in your experience with the Max? Well, I live it's too young to do that still, probably.
Yeah. Honestly, from everything I've read and everything I've researched, we've tried everything. First of all, we've tried reasoning and bargaining and saying, you can get this for dessert if you eat this. And, my husband obviously is a little bit more adamant that he eats, being I want you to be big and strong and these things. And that's how his dad was for him too. But I've just found that patience is sometimes the best way. And if I've also tried this. So I've tried, we've tried giving him something that's a little bit less healthy just to get him to eat. Okay, fine, you can just have the chips, or okay, fine, you can have the fries, or whatever it is. And then you don't feel good about that decision either. So what I've found to be the best solution is to just honestly let him listen to his body and be okay, you eat when you're ready. And sometimes that means it'll be, before bedtime, and he's Mom, I'm hungry. So then we'll have the meal. Or, if he's not hungry for breakfast yet, then by lunchtime, he eats double. So sometimes they just know what's best. Sometimes it's as much as he'll go, Mom, I have to go to the bathroom. And I know he goes number 2. Sure enough, a few minutes later, he's hungry now. So sometimes it's just, they have tiny tummies. They're working out their own digestion, and they'll eat when they're hungry. You just have to remember that they'll eat when they're hungry. And sure enough, if they miss a meal, if they eat light for one meal, they eat more for the next meal, and you just have to trust.
Yeah, I think it's the fear of your kid not having enough. And I think all parents feel paralyzed by that fear, but it's true that they have an intuition too. They know exactly what they want at that point. There are cases, I know parents whose children really don't want to eat, and it becomes a problem. But I think to get there, it needs to be a consistent problem, every day. And then there's no, the fluctuations like you see them. So I agree with that approach. And what about, Liv is young now, is still 1, but she seems very comfortable eating solid food, but also she drinks from the straw. It's great. It's great. So how is she adapting to the solid food?
She's just like Max was, not to the picky eater stage. She's I will try anything you put in front of me. And I love that stage because you can feed them such healthy food. She loves it all. And the straw thing, so many people ask about, how did you get her to drink through a straw? And her and Max both picked it up really quickly. And I think the first thing that helped was just like modeling it, like showing them how I did it. And then they can make these little like silicone chewy straws, which if you start with that, all they want to do is chew on the straw. They just want to chew on it. So I would take my smoothie with like a hard like glass straw. I think glass helped because you can see the liquid moving up in it. And then, so I would like sip it all the way to the top and put it to her lips so she could taste how good it tasted. And that by that point, they'll do anything to get more of it. So then they kind of pick it up really quickly. So I started by teaching them with my glass straw so they could see it, taste it. And then we moved to like the little toddler cup with the silicone straw and all of that. And yeah, it's the rest is history.
Yeah, that's great tip. You mentioned something really important. Our children have small tummies and they're figuring out their digestion. And I know you've been looking into everything about health. And at the beginning, in the introduction, I actually said you're not a doctor, but you have helped so many more people than a lot of doctors can say getting healthier. And that's because you also share the knowledge that you acquire, which is great because we all need to get information in many different ways and then explore them and research them for ourselves and see what actually sticks. But when it comes to children, the microbiome is still forming. And I know you are still breastfeeding, which is really great because that's the best way to get microbiome into the kids. So what, aside from, what is if somebody cannot breastfeed, right? So they have a problem breastfeeding, what is the best way to guarantee that your child is going to have a good gut bacteria?
I think the second best place to go is to go to a milk bank, or even better than that, because I did have an abundance and oversupply of milk. So I ended up donating to a milk bank. So that would be a great option. But even better is there's website or on Facebook, there's different chapters for like each city, each state called Human Milk for Human Mothers. So you can get breast milk directly from another person. There might be a little bit of, you might want to go through a little bit of a vetting process with them. But the nice thing about that is that it's not pasteurized. So what I found out from donating to the milk bank is that they pool everybody's milk together and pasteurize it. So it's a little bit more watered down, I guess. It wouldn't be quite as nutrient dense. So human milk from human mothers or a milk bank, or if you really can't do either of those options, then for formula, which I know is really difficult to obtain right now, Plant-Based Juniors they mention some soy-based formulas, which to my knowledge is about the best you can get for an infant. So hopefully they don't have a soy allergy or intolerance, but I think you can even find it USDA organic. So I would check out Plant-Based Juniors for that. Was there another part to that question?
So if they start eating solid as well, what's the best way to guarantee that they get enough microbiome variety? So a good microbiome.
Yeah, I would say, fiber in general. So fiber is prebiotic food for your probiotic gut flora. And the nice thing is, so all plants contain fiber. All animal products, meat, dairy, eggs, contain 0 grams of fiber. All plant foods are abundant in fiber. So I think that is just a really great way. Again, smoothies being a perfect way. If your kid obviously isn't going to be consuming a kale salad, you can still be seeding their gut microbiome with, feeding it kale. Then that gut, whatever foods you're eating, that gut bacteria is going to proliferate, whatever feeds on that food. So if you're feeding your gut good food, the probiotic gut flora is going to proliferate. And it's honestly going to send signals to your brain. These guys in your tummy are going to send signals to your brain saying, hey, I'm craving that kale salad, or I'm craving that smoothie. So I think that's important. And then I also heard something great on a podcast one time that I love. It said, eat clean, live dirty. So we are a lot of times, especially with our firstborn, very hyper paranoid about germs and sanitizing and disinfecting and keeping them off of the floor and from touching airplane handles and whatever else. So I think it's just really important to just kind of relax and sit back a little bit and allow their immunity to kind of build. And that's the best way to do it. And that also helps with the gut microbiome. And I think like letting them get dirty outside in the mud and the dirt and eat as clean as possible, but live dirty.
Yeah, and you have a dog, and that I read that the dogs are the best way to build immunity and also get a great gut bacteria flora. So Max is definitely having a good exposure there and lived. What about what about birthing? So you're obviously, if people are listening to this for the first time and they don't know Eat, Move, Rest, they obviously get a sense that you're doing things that are quite clean and natural. What was your birthing approach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did work with a midwife for Max, and then for Liv with a physician who actually was very holistic minded. So for both pregnancies, I had just an amazing experience from start to finish, being able to call all the shots and have a natural birth, unmedicated. Liv was a water birth, and I think if you can, do it that way and just push through, literally, quite literally push through without the pain meds and all of that stuff, and have a vaginal birth. Like that is one of the best ways to really help your child's gut microbiome and immunity, is they pick up a lot of that bacteria going through the birth canal. So
yeah, of course, the first breath comes with, yeah. And what were the similarities between Max and Liv's birth versus change? I mean, you mentioned Liv was a water birth, and I guess Max wasn't. Yep. What was the difference between the two, and why did things end up being different? What was your approach and the lesson learned from the first time?
With Max, I think that I didn't know how far along I was. I must have a high pain tolerance. So I was 9 centimeters by the time we got to the hospital. And I think that I tried to stay home longer than I should have. So when we got to the hospital, everything felt very chaotic and rushed. And I kind of lost sight of everything I had tried to prepare with the hypnobirthing and all that. I like kind of used it, but I was just kind of flustered. So with Liv, I just, whether you're going to do a home birth or go to a birthing center or a hospital, I say it's just, for me, it felt right to just be where I knew I needed to be and like being on time so that when I got there with Liv, like I felt much more centered and calm. I worked a lot more on my breath work with her pregnancy. And just, I think that helped a lot, just to focus on the breath and then to transition into getting into the water in the tub. Thankfully, our hospital did that. They do water births there. So I got into the tub, and I think that helped tremendously just to calm and relax everybody. So that was definitely a game changer. And with Max, I was just too flustered. So it really helped me to just get in the right mindset and be where I needed to be, because then my body felt like it could let go.
Yeah. And in terms of now, obviously the kids are doing great. And what about their nutrition? We talked about, and they seem to get everything they need perfectly and eating a lot of the same things you guys do, plus the breast milk. What about products for children? What is the main concern for you, and how do you choose the best products for them, especially for skin? Because a lot of people think food, but then we forget about what we put on our skin, which is just as important, because it's food for us too. What is your approach with the children?
As far as, skin products go, we really try to just keep it like super, super simple. Like jojoba oil is a great one because it's the closest to our skin's natural sebum. So that one we find is really great just to like oil them up after their bath and shower. And, we don't really find the need to, now for Max, he's got some shaggy hair. So we do shampoo and conditioner, but it's like super clean and simple and straightforward. Like you could probably eat it if you wanted to. And for Liv, we still, we don't find the need to like give her like shampoo and body wash even necessarily, just a good rinse and oil her up with some jojoba and giving her a little baby body massage. I love doing that every night, massaging her little rolls. And then, the same with food. It's just like a lot of like you go to the grocery store and so many of the kid products are just like brightly colored packaging. Like they almost want the child to reach for it off the shelf because they like it. And they're targeting kids. And if you look at it, it might say healthy and natural on the front and it lures you in. But on the back, if you look, you always want to look at the ingredients list because there's a lot of hidden food colorings and dyes that can cause allergies and cause things like ADHD. And there's a lot of refined sugars and other refined stuff that you just don't, I always say, like, as a general rule of thumb, if you can't read it, don't eat it. Unless it's quinoa. A lot of people can't read quinoa, but you should eat it. And so I've found a couple of good plant-based kids products. And the nice thing is there's more and more popping up every day, things that make it easier to be busy on the go. I've got no time, but this great USDA organic product can help to fill that void and they taste good too. So there's a lot more products popping up, but make sure to turn the box or the bag around and look at the ingredient list so you're not being lied to.
Yeah. And is Plant-Based Junior also a good place for parents to understand the ingredients on packaging? Because a lot of people don't know what they're reading. And yes, we can tell them, look, if you can't read it, don't eat it. Mm-hmm. But they're like, yeah, but this means sugar. I just don't know what kind of sugar. I don't know if that's a good resource for parents to understand what the ingredients that are safe for their kids are versus the ones that should stay away from.
Yeah, definitely. And then there's another gal that like specializes in like food label reading, the Food Babe, Vani Hari. Yeah. She's got some good stuff. Yeah. It might ruin some of your favorite, treat meals though.
Yep. Time to cook at home, kids.
Yes.
Everybody. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is scary what is in our food and how much control these companies have, but also the fact that they can actually put it on the shelves, knowing that is not good for us. And, one thing that I said at the beginning, like looking at children that are plant-based, I just see this purity in their eyes. Like it's very clear they are alert. And, but there's also a calm, like Max, for example, has this very observant energy that he just looks around and he observes and he takes it in. And, children will be more vivacious and they want to play and they might be, you still go through the terrible too. I'm not sure, actually, I never had children, but I see it from my friends and, and I just feel like that happens because energy we have, they have so much of it. But there is a difference, I think. And I mean, I can talk for myself. I was a child that was given a lot of sugar from my parents. They didn't know better. They didn't know how to feed us properly. We had a lot of home cooked food because of my grandmother used to cook a lot. But I still had like treats every day. And that was a way that my parents, especially because of divorce, it was like, that's how I'm going to buy your affection by giving you sweets, which bloody hell works because, I mean, my brain was like, woo, sugar. Yeah. So I can see that, but it's not good for you. And I had this very crazy energy about me. I mean, for years to come, not just as a kid, because I was addicted to sugar until I became anorexic. And then like it was really from top to bottom, because then when you don't eat anything, you feel completely depleted of any energy and completely depressed, quite honestly. So there is this up and down that you get into. But, that's one thing with Max and Liv. They have this really good, pure energy about them that I think parents, if they watched like I am watching and noticed, they would actually think about it and be like, this is a good diet for them. Because I think ultimately we go down to the essence of our being that is naturally coming out when we give ourselves what we need only. And the more pure and natural things are, the more that essence comes out without being interfered with. And I feel this is what I see from children like yours that are on this journey of plant-based living, because they don't have anything that interferes with that, and they can just be themselves. So I wonder if you notice with, for example, the family members or friends, children that have a different diet, do you pick it up as well?
Oh, definitely, for sure. And I think about my aunt who her parents are from India. She's Indian. And so they are typically vegetarian. She comes from a vegetarian background, and she has said that to us about Max. She's just like, there's something different about him. He's very aware, he's very alert, he's very like kind and caring and compassionate. And she's like, I know it's because he's on this vegan diet. And that was a very high compliment from her. And it's true, we've gone to like a petting zoo here or there, and just the other day, and Max was interacting with the goats and the pigs and the chickens. And the first thing he'll do is put his hand out and let them sniff his hand. And then he gets the go ahead and he'll pet them. And he's never pulled Bo's tail, our dog. He's never pulled a cat's tail or pulled their hair. Neither of our kids, even Liv, she'll nuzzle up next to Bo when he's laying on the floor, and she'll just pet him. And it's the cutest, but like something you've never seen before from a child, let alone an infant. They're just so calm and peaceful with the animals and around each other. And they do, honestly, they're human, they have their moments, they have their meltdowns, but
of course,
there is definitely something different.
Yeah. No, of course. I when you were saying that, I was just thinking, I mean, the Most High created us in a certain way, and at the beginning we were meant to just be in harmony with other living beings, especially mammals who have so much in common with us. And I think that makes sense. There is no that, unfortunately, I mean, dark energy in a way that our meat comes from places where there's death. Like death is not light energy. We are affected by that, because one thing I actually felt energetically when I went plant-based is that I wasn't as angry about things that, I mean, I still get angry, but I wasn't like always angry about life in general, or I had some pent up like energy that wasn't good.
Definitely.
And I'm like, I wonder if that's not mine. That's not my energy. So our food carried the energetics for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. Like just to see. Okay. So before I let you go, what is the best advice you can give to parents that are thinking, even if they didn't do the plant-based pregnancy, that didn't go plant-based before, but they want to really do it now, whether it's for the environment or for health? What is the best advice you can give them about their children, which is the main concern for a lot of people?
I would say it's never too late to start, and to just trust the process and be super patient and try again. They say that it takes, it can take upwards of 20 times to continue reintroducing a certain food for them to finally even try it. And then you have to get to the point where they like it. So just continue to put the food in front of them. And also, like I said, walk the walk, continue to model good behavior, and to have good language around food too. Like not to put like, oh, this is a bad food, this is a good food. And just to always make sure that you are really just enjoying your food and showing that, mirroring that, so they can see it, and make them a part of the process so that they feel involved and can feel that sense of pride when it goes time to eat whatever it is that they're making with you.
That's great. And do they need to do any blood tests for children at this point, or do you not worry with that for a while?
Honestly, I think the best thing you can do with your kids is to just observe their behavior, observe their growth, make sure that everything's on target. And that's just, honestly, they haven't given us any reason to feel like, oh, we need to go get your blood work done. Even for myself, I don't feel that way anymore. Before I felt like I needed to, and now I feel like I just feel so good and at peace, feel energized inside and out. So I don't think you need to sweat it too much, especially when they're super small, if you're, taking good care of them. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for this. And I have to ask you this, for your new book that you're working on, are there also recipes for children in there?
Yes, we're going to make it very family friendly, and also have some that are, maybe like Max's favorite or Liv's favorite. So
brilliant. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Erin. And I will link all your resources and all your links, all your pages on the show notes, so people can reach you if they haven't seen you yet. And then, I'm really looking forward to the book coming out.
Yeah, it was so great. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And we'll speak soon again. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you everyone for staying on. I hope you found it really, really helpful, especially if you're expecting or have children. If you want more information, please do check out Eat, Move, Rest. I've linked everything in the show notes, including the resources that Erin shared that helped her in her transition. So, if you like this episode, as always, please review it, share it, and like it so that we can keep on growing, and I'll see you next time.